Season's greetings. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I'm Reverend Michelle Buheit, the minister of this congregation. We are so glad you have chosen to join us in worship. Please see our website, uuamherst.org, or the emailed weekly update for opportunities to connect and to grow your soul.
We begin our worship together with an acknowledgement and word of gratitude for the land upon which our church rests. The Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst sits on 11 acres of land that once belonged to the Seneca Nation, one of the tribes that make up the Haudenosaunee. The land belonged to the Haudenosaunee not because they had deeds or other legal proof of ownership, but because they were born to the land and lived in relationship with it. We are the grateful heirs of deep connection.
Like many congregations in our faith tradition, we follow a shared monthly theme. During this often hectic month, we consider what it means to be a people of stillness. Stillness is not inactivity. It is a choice we make, often in the midst of activity. Stillness is a withinness, a spaciousness. We ask, how can we cultivate that in ourselves and nurture it in one another? The days before Christmas are often overfull, but the nights invite us into stillness and quiet waiting. Today we consider the nights before. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. That night before Christmas is still 4 days away. We have another important night before Christmas to observe, one that is far older than the Christmas story, as old as the earth itself. Today we observe the dying year as the darkness culminates with the solstice. With stories and songs, we will bless the darkness and invite the return of the light. We begin with the lighting of the chalice.
Our chalice lighting is by Reverend Sharon Wiley. This solstice, in honor of ancient traditions that celebrate this time of longest night, we observe that the flaming chalice holds the elements of the 4 directions: earth, air, fire, water. The lamp boil for earth, the air that feeds the flame, the fire we light, and the chalice itself, the cup, the symbol of water. We light our chalice and reflect on the light we need to guide us through hard times, the light of our shared faith, the light of loving community, the light of love, joy, and hope.
A fire is burning, the cold night draws near. All who need comfort are welcome by here. Look beneath the stars and toast the past year. For the spirit of solstice is still living here. We'll count all our blessings as the mother lays down, with snow as her blanket covering the ground. Oh, thanks to the mother for the life that she brings. She'll wake up to warm us again in the spring. Oh, count all your blessings, for the cold will pass. Oh, share the harvest and the the spirit of solstice is still living there. Count all your blessings, for the cold will pass. Oh, we must share our harvest, for the spirit of solstice is here.
The word solstice is derived from the Latin words sol, for sun, and sistere, for to stand still. It is the time where the sun reaches its highest or lowest point, and there is a pause in the world. This pause is a portal, an opportunity to interrupt the momentum of habits and energy patterns that no longer serve us and our world. This year, we will see a planetary alignment on the solstice known as a Great Conjunction. These occur every 20 years, yet this particular alignment has not been seen since 1623. We are living in exciting times. To help us understand the solstice a little better, here's a story from religious educator Piaf Azul from the Wildflower UU Church in Austin, Texas.
I'm going to share a holiday story with you today, but it's not the holiday you might be thinking of. When I was a kid, people thought a lot of times that I celebrated Christmas, but actually in my family, we celebrated the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. So that's the day when we'd get together and sing and eat food, and my favorite part when I was a kid was the presents. But there weren't really solstice books or solstice movies, so my mom had to get creative. So this is a story that she wrote for me when I was very, very small. And now my daughter Nayeli has illustrated it to make this video, which is kind of cool. Hope you enjoy it.
Long, long ago, when the sun and the moon were children, they had only one toy to play with. It was the earth. Because they both wanted it, they decided to take turns. When it was the sun's turn, the people and creatures on earth felt warm, the crops grew tall, and it was day. When it was the moon's turn, it grew quiet and dark on earth, and the people and creatures rested, and it was night. One day, the moon decided she didn't want to give the earth back to the sun because she was having so much fun. So she kept it for a few minutes longer before giving it back to the sun. The next night, she kept it for a few minutes longer than the last time. This continued until the nights were much longer than the days. The sun wanted his whole turn back, but he was very shy and not sure what he should do. On earth, the people began to grow worried. It was getting colder, and there wasn't enough sun for the crops to grow. Looking up at the cold night sky, they were scared, afraid that the night might just keep getting longer and longer until there was no day left at all. The people decided to make a giant bonfire to call the sun back to the earth. The youngest children gathered twigs and leaves. The older kids carried large branches, and the strongest grown-ups hoisted giant logs onto their shoulders. They piled all these things into a big pile and began the blaze. It burned bright and hot, just like the sun. Looking down on earth, the sun saw the fire and knew immediately that the people and creatures were missing him. The next morning, he took his turn back a few minutes earlier. On earth, the people rejoiced, for they knew that the warmth and the light were returning.
Our solstice journey together is both an inward and an outward one. Like so much in our lives, we must prepare ourselves before we can undertake the tasks, both large and small, that await us. This is the time of waiting. This is the time of darkness. This is the time of coming to birth. A single flame can warm a room. A single word can calm a fear. A single smile can light and lift a heart. A single touch can heal a wound. As the light replaces the darkness, let us rejoice together in its rebirth. Like many points on the wheel of the year, the winter solstice offers us an opportunity to release what is past and prepare the way for that which is to come. We are drawn to the darkness and stillness to pause and reflect. A different approach than the lights and sound of Christmas. Making space for the darkness in our lives, the grief of loss, the pain of separation, the hardship and disappointment, not trying to ignore or gloss over all of that, we make space for hope and healing. And so we begin with a rite of release, clearing out what weighs us down and holds us back so that we can live in freedom. I will offer a little space between each phrase to give you time to repeat them aloud or in the quiet of your own heart. Feel free to close your eyes and begin with a few cleansing breaths. I release myself and others from old promises, from wishes and vows, public and private, from sorrows I may have caused and others may have caused in me, either in ignorance or with intent, by acts of willfulness or neglect. We release. We empty ourselves fully of all that no longer serves. We release ourselves and others, now and forever, of all lingering things that bring us pain. May it be so. When we ritualize an intention, in this case, relieving ourselves and others from harmful emotions and toxic bonds, we create the space for something new to take root in us. The change is not instantaneous. We must remain for a time empty, awaiting the seed in the darkness. Mark Nepo writes, "All the buried seeds crack open in the dark the instant they surrender to a process they can't see." Let the music wash over you and accompany you in the stillness.
Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet call surrounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will. let your peace flow through me.
As we enter into this time, this new circle around the sun, what new things do we invite into our lives? What would you have grow in your life, in your world? What seeds would you nurture? In this time of possibility, what changes would you weave in your world? I realize this year has been a dandy, and you may have a very long list of changes you would see in your world. But I encourage you to choose something that you have the power to weave into your world, something that is actionable. We'd all love to see an immediate end to the pandemic, world peace, and some semblance of sanity in politics. But I suggest we start a little closer to home. What can we plant in our own lives that will bring us closer to being the change we long to see in the world? What seeds of kindness and compassion can we plant in ourselves and nurture into fruition? Now actually hold out your cupped hand and visualize that seed resting in your palm. If you held an actual seed in your palm, there would be no expectation that it would burst into fruit or flower just by the power of your wishful thinking. If you held an actual seed, you would know that although it has the potential for life, it requires the right conditions for that life to emerge. It needs to be buried in the dark. It needs tending, even when nothing appears to be happening. It needs water and light in the same way our spirits need hope and grief, joy and loss. The seed you hold is the seed of light, of anticipation and commitment, of hope and courage. You are a bearer of the light. Blessed are you who bear the light in unbearable times, who testify to its endurance amid the unendurable, who bear witness to its persistence when everything seems in shadow and grief. Blessed are you in whom the light lives, in whom the brightness blazes, your heart a chapel, an altar, where in the deepest night can be seen the fire that shines forth in you in unaccountable faith, in stubborn hope, in love that illumines every broken thing it finds. I invite you over the next day or two to choose a small object, maybe a stone or a shell or marble, a seed, or even a coin, something that you can slip into a pocket to be a touchstone, a reminder and a presence to bring yourself back to an awareness of your intention, the light you have planted in yourself. I will put my object in the pocket of my coat, where I'll notice it when I reach for my keys, gloves, or mask. I'll choose an object that has some weight to it, so I notice it when I put on my coat, preparing to go out into the world. I am a bearer of the light, and I will not shrink from bringing the light to the world. You are a bearer of the light, with the courage and compassion to live that light into the world. We welcome the light. Of course, we are only at the beginning of the journey of a new year. Although it will be another week or so before the calendar tells us a new year is beginning, The cycles of the earth as it circles the sun make that shift at solstice. Beginnings are important and deserve our attention and intention. Indeed, as Mary Poppins says, well begun is half done. This can apply to children cleaning a nursery and cleaning up our mess on the planet. We know it can be done if we only have the will. It was not that long ago, well within my lifetime, that pollution choked the skies over nearly every city on Earth. With mindful regulations, we were able to reverse much of that, and we can do it again. We must not let discouragement of lost ground keep us from undertaking the journey again. Recently, I came upon this poem by David Whyte entitled The Journey. Above the mountains, the geese turn into the light again, painting their black silhouettes on an open sky. Sometimes everything has to be inscribed across the heavens so you can find the one line already written inside you. Sometimes it takes a great sky to find that first bright and indescribable wedge of freedom in your own heart. Sometimes, with the bones of the black sticks left when the fire has gone out, someone has written something new in the ashes of your life. You are not leaving, even as the light fades quickly now. You are arriving. I learned something this past week. Maybe you already know this and I'm just late to the party, but twilight happens in the morning. I know. It's a different kind of twilight, nautical twilight, that happens in the evening. At both times of day, it is the quality of refracted light in the liminal space between day and night, an in-betweenness, a leaving and an arriving. I'm going to read the poem again because there is so much richness. I don't want you to miss a moment of it. So again, The Journey by David Whyte. Above the mountains, the geese turn into the light again, painting their black silhouettes on an open sky. Sometimes everything has to be inscribed across the heavens so you can find the one line already written inside you. Sometimes it takes a great sky to find that first bright and indescribable wedge of freedom in your own heart. Sometimes, with the bones of the black sticks left when the fire has gone out, someone has written something new in the ashes of your life. You are not leaving. Even as the light fades quickly now, you are arriving. There is a line that describes the potential of another night before Christmas, the story of the birth of the Christ child. It's from the middle of the poem. Sometimes everything has to be inscribed across the heavens so you can find the one line already written inside you. Sometimes a story must include a heavenly host of angels singing the promise of peace and goodwill to all for us to recognize the awesome potential in each new life. There's a song we often sing at this season, a poem by the great religious educator Sophia Lyon-Faz that declares, "Each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wondering, a time for worshiping. Each night a child is born is a holy night." When we reduce that truth to a cacophony of angels heralding a Prince of Peace, we lose something important, something vital to the possibility of peace on earth. Each night a black child is born is a holy night. Each night an immigrant child is born is a holy night. Each night a child is born differently limbed or brain damaged or stillborn is a holy night. The promise of peace resides within each one of us, a seed of light, waiting to be nurtured to turn away the dark. Each night and day is holy. Every being, human and non-human, plant and mineral, is holy. My friend and our Director of Faith Development, Angela, has a special story to share with you.
This is The Night Tree by Eve Bunting. On the night before Christmas, we always go to find our tree. We bundle up so we're warm. Nina is already wearing her boots that are too big for her. She's been wearing them all day. Dad sets our box in the back of the truck with the rest of the stuff. And the four of us squish into the front seat. We drive through the bright Christmas streets to where the dark and quiet begin. Nina is almost asleep in Mom's lap when we stop. Are we there, I ask? And Dad says yes, and rolls down the windows so we can smell the tree smell. We scramble out. There are oaks growing here, and alder and maples that are bare now and white in the moonshine. The pines and the spruces and the firs are green. This is called loose forest, but Dad says it's not really a forest, just a nice forgotten place where our town ends. Dad goes first on the path between the trees, carrying our box and the big red lantern. Mom and Nina go next, holding hands. I come last with the blanket. It hasn't snowed yet. It's so cold my breath hurts. The sky is spattered with stars, and the moon, big as a basketball, slides in and out between the treetops. Dad's lantern sweeps ahead. Look, he whispers. We stop. A deer is watching us. I see the brightness of its eyes. Then it turns, and it's gone. Here's our tree, said Dad. It's been our tree forever and ever. We walk around it, touching it. It's grown since last year, I say. Mom puts her hand on my shoulder. So have you. So have I, Nina says. Nina hates to be left out. An owl hoots deep in the darkness. There are secrets all around us. Can I put on the popcorn chain, Nina asks. She hops up and down and right out of one of her boots. Mom helps her get it back on. Nina takes one end of the chain and I take the other, and we wind it around the tree. We've brought apples and tangerines with strings on them, and we hang them from the branches. It's hard to hang string loops when you have gloves on, but it's too cold to take them off. For weeks we've been making balls of sunflower seeds and pressed millet and honey. We hang those too. We scatter shelled nuts and breadcrumbs and pieces of apple underneath for the little creatures who can't climb very well. Our tree looks so pretty. Mom says I should spread the blanket out so we can sit and admire our tree. She has brought it a thermos of hot chocolate. I take off my gloves and toast my hands around the warm cup. Dad turns off the lantern and we stay quiet, hoping some of the little animals will come while we're here, hoping the deer will come back, but it doesn't. It's shy, Dad says. I'm shy too, Nina tells him. Before we leave, she and I get to choose a Christmas carol to sing. I choose O Come All Ye Faithful. Nina chooses Old MacDonald Had a Farm. That's not a Christmas song, silly, I tell her, but Mom says it's fine and a very nice song, too. We sing fast because there's lots of verses, and it's getting colder. After the last EIO, we gather up our things and head for the truck. I look back once. Our tree has folded itself into the darkness, but I think I can still see it. Stars caught in its branches, and the moon swinging lopsided on top. Nina gets tired and Dad has to wrap her in the blanket and carry her. I carry her boots. Later in bed, I think about our tree, and sometimes next day, when the aunts and the uncles and the cousins are at our house and it's noisy and happy, I let my mind go back to Luke's forest. I think of the birds having Christmas dinner and the squirrels and the opossums and the raccoons and the skunks. There might even be a bear because Dad said bears don't really sleep all winter, and if one's going to wake up, I just bet it would wake up for Christmas. Maybe a fox has come, stepping high on its thin, sharp paws, and they're all there together, singing their own Christmas songs on Christmas Day around our tree. The end.
Each night is holy. Each creature and being is holy. The stars and trees and snow and cold, all holy. I love the story that Angela shared. I love the surprise that the family is not going to the woods to cut a tree, but to share the holiness of the cold night with the tree and with the creatures that inhabit the forest. I love that the family made a good beginning with their forethought and planning, with apples and popcorn garlands, blankets and hot chocolate. I love the interdependence and relationship that this story lifts up. I love it so much that I want this for you too. Throughout the week, and indeed throughout the winter, you are invited to come by the church at your convenience and add your blessings, your edible ornaments, to feed the wildlife to a designated tree in the memorial garden at the front of the church. Maybe you've never paused to notice the garden that sits halfway between the road and our church building. In the warm months, it is filled with flowers and lush green plantings. In the dark of winter, it is noticeable by the presence of towering evergreens. There is one very special evergreen, a bristlecone pine, one of the most ancient species that sits among the tall evergreens. It's smaller, with upright branches that look like arms waving hello. Hopefully it will be noticeable because of the offerings of edible treats for the wildlife that calls our church home. If you notice that it is weighed down by gifts of food, feel free to start decorating the small trees around it. Then, take a selfie or picture of your family near the tree and send it to minister@uuamherst.org. Don't worry, that information will be in the credits at the end of the service and in future editions of the emailed weekly update. Feeding the birds and wildlife throughout the cold winter may be a small thing, but I promise it will keep the light of hope aglow in your heart. Nurturing your seed of courage with attention and intention will make a difference in the world. Remember, well begun is half done. We are on this journey together, each tending the spark within us and joining our flame to light the chalice with the light we need to guide us through hard times, the light of our shared faith, the light of loving community, the light of love, joy, and hope. May your time in the dark nurture your spirit and call you forth into the journey to read what is inscribed across the heavens so you can find the one line already written inside you. Happy solstice and good Yule.
Our closing words are from Susan Cooper. This is called The Shortest Day. So the shortest day came, and the year died, and everywhere down the centuries of the snow-white world came people singing, dancing to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees. They hung their homes with evergreen. They burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive. And when the New Year's sunshine blazed awake, they shouted, reveling. Through all the frosty ages you can hear them echoing behind us. Listen. All the long echoes sing the same delight this shortest day, as promise wakens in the sleeping land. They carol, feast, give thanks, and dearly love their friends, and hope for peace. And so do we, here, now, this year, and every year. Welcome Yule.
A fire is burning, the long night draws near. All who need comfort are welcome by here. We'll dance 'neath the stars and toast the past year, for the spirit of solstice is still living here. We'll count all our blessings while the mother lays down, with snow as her blanket covering the ground. Thanks to the mother for the life that she brings. She'll waken to warm us again in the spring. The poor and the hungry, the sick and the lost, these are our children, no matter the cost. Come by the fire, the harvest to share, for the spirit of solstice is still living here. A fire is burning, the long night draws near. All who need comfort are welcome by here. We'll dance 'neath the stars and toast the past year, for the spirit of solstice is still living here. The spirit of solstice is still living here.
Thank you for joining us in worship today. Please see the credits at the end of this service for information about the music and other worship elements. And do take a moment to visit our website, uuamherst.org, and click on the giving link, or text your gift to 833-987-1968. We close this time of worship by extinguishing our chalice.
Darkness now draws a cloak around us. Late dawn, early sundown, these are the shortest days, the turning of the year, the solstice. Let us name what we celebrate in the dark and the cold. Quiet, sleep, which is a thread of our connection with the hibernating animals. Constellations, traced and rehearsed for centuries by our ancestors. Shelter from the heat, the mirror glare of crops beneath the sun. Homecomings and memory and winter's wisdom, that even eager growth must slow and rest and wait. Let us rejoice in the gifts of this season.
Travel light and travel easy, till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. Life is short, and we do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel with us. So be swift to love and make haste to be kind. Amen.